Chapter 151, Being Hunted. Why? Why would the members of the Divine Punishment sect appear here? The black-robed members of the Divine Punishment sect quickly charged into the fleeing crowd. Watching as the soldiers who fought against them fell one by one under the Holy Church's merciless blades, watching as one familiar noblewoman after another had their hearts pierced, watching as her playmates from the past fell one by one into the hands of those cruel black-robed men. Xingya's heart was gradually consumed by fear, as if the claws of a ghost from the abyss had firmly grasped her, dragging her step by step into an endless, despair-filled quagmire. Although she appeared somewhat arrogant in her daily life, Xingya was, after all, just a 12-year-old child. Protected every day within the Count's mansion, she, who was unaware of the world's affairs, could hardly bear the horrifying oppression brought by the Divine Punishment sect. It could even be said that she had never seen blood before, let alone witnessing the cruel deprivation of living lives before her eyes. Watching the cruel scenes unfolding before her, hearing the screams of servants and past companions, Xingya's tears fell uncontrollably from her face like broken pearls. "Woo's woo, Mama, where are you?" On the verge of collapsing from the thick, murderous atmosphere around her, Xingya couldn't help but wail, constantly calling for her mother, the Countess Diana. However, when the members of the Divine Punishment sect charged towards them, Diana had already been separated from them in the chaos. Xingya, who had always relied on her mother, could not find her mother's figure when she needed her the most. Fear, despair, and worry spread rapidly in her heart. Seeing that she couldn't find her mother, Xingya could only turn her pleading gaze to the knight who was holding her and running, as well as the other Count's guards nearby. "Where is my mother? You have to take me to find her. Hurry, take me to her." "My lady." Hearing Xingya's willful words, the Count's knights showed embarrassed expressions. After all, in the current situation, it was uncertain whether they could escape the Divine Punishment sect's grasp, let alone going back to find someone. "My lady, please calm down. Let's first get away from here." "I don't care. I want to find my mother." "My lady." "I don't care," Xingya shouted. "My lady, you this." Faced with the child's crying, the guards' faces became increasingly awkward. However, at this moment, the expressions of these guards and that member of the Blizzard Knights suddenly changed, anxiously looking behind them. One of the servants even directly ran over and covered Xingya's mouth with his hand. "Lady, be quiet." "Xingya." The guard's serious gaze frightened Xingya into silence, so she could only nod in terror, crying all the while. Seeing this, the guards and the knight exchanged glances, nodded, and gently placed Xingya and Yumo beside a bush. The Blizzard Knight's knight then solemnly squatted in front of the two children and said in a serious tone, "Lady Xia and Lady Xingya, please leave quickly through this small path here. You're not protecting us anymore. Why?" Upon hearing this, Xingya's uneasiness spread even more wildly within her. However, faced with the pitiful expression of the little girl, the knight could only helplessly shake his head, glancing nervously behind him. "There's no time to explain. You have to leave right now." But. No buts, go now." Under the pressing circumstances, the knight no longer cared about noble etiquette and shouted at Xingya without mercy. Startled by the shout, Xingya had no choice but to swallow her doubts and leave with the pink-haired girl, crying as they passed through the bushes. On the other side, after seeing the two young ladies leave, the knight and the other Count's guards revealed determined expressions. They drew their swords or other weapons from their waists and charged at the black-robed men pursuing them from behind. However, against the 6th stage Divine Punishment sect executor, the 5th stage knight and the Count's 4th-rank guards had no chance of victory. As soon as they engaged, tragic screams echoed through the small grove. Hearing these screams, Xingya, who was running away, shuddered. Looking back fearfully, she saw at that moment the knights and guards who had just protected them were already incapacitated under the assault of the Divine Punishment Sect members, lying in pools of blood, their fate unknown. How could this happen? At this moment, Xingya's fear was further magnified. Gazing at the black-robed men filled with a murderous aura, the only thought left in Xingya's heart was to run away. Taking advantage of the fact that they hadn't noticed her yet, she had to run. With that in mind, Xingya quickly turned her head. Meanwhile, after noticing the indifferent expression on the pink-haired girl beside her, Xingya couldn't help but cry and anxiously whisper, "What are you doing? Hurry up and run." Although her past noble education had caused Xingya to feel great resistance towards Yumo, who was a slave, and even insulted her due to incidents from their childhood, Xingya was still a kind-hearted child at her core. She naturally didn't want to see another child fall into the hands of those twisted people. Thus, Xingya grabbed the pink-haired girl's hand and pulled her along, running quickly towards the depths of the small grove. Seeing Xingya holding her hand and leading her to escape, the pink-haired girl raised her eyebrows slightly. Of course, Xingya couldn't notice all of these details, her orange-red eyes constantly looking behind to make sure no one was catching up to them. Faster, we must go even faster. Inside the woods, there was her secret hideout. Once they were inside, they would be safe. Xingya couldn't help but think this way. However, how could two ordinary little girls escape the pursuit of the Divine Punishment Sect? Keep in mind that among the people Romani sent to kill them and root them out, there were several sixth-rank executors. What good would the cover of the woods and bushes do? Within the perception of the powerful, they still had nowhere to hide. Just as Xingya turned her head, looking towards the secret hideout right in front of her, a black-robed man suddenly descended from the sky, blocking Xingya's path. It caused Xingya's breath to stop abruptly, and her pupils shrank. "How? No, Mom." In an instant, an unparalleled sense of despair erupted in the little girl's heart. She instinctively wanted to call for her mother. However, the black-robed man suddenly struck out at Xingya, who was running ahead, covering her mouth and firmly pressing her to the ground. At the same time, several other black-robed men arrived, surrounding the other pink-haired girl. With this, Xingya's plan to hide in the secret hideout was completely ruined. Looking at the hideous black-robed man pressing down on her, and recalling the cruel scenes she had witnessed, tears couldn't help but stream from Xingya's eyes. "No, no. Don't kill me." Xingya wanted to beg for mercy. But with her mouth covered, she couldn't even speak, so she could only cry and look at the black-robed man with pleading eyes. Unfortunately, this black-robed man seemed to have no compassion for her, and other than murderous intent, there was no other emotion in his slightly red eyes as he faced such a delicate little girl like Xingya. After using a strange gem to examine Xingya, the black-robed man's face revealed a disdainful smile. Your talent isn't even that high, so there's no need to keep you as a sacrifice. Goodbye, little girl." "He wants to kill me." "No, no, don't. I'm still young, I haven't even fallen in love yet. There are so many things I want to do. I don't want to die." Hearing these words filled with murderous intent, Xingya fell completely into the quagmire of despair. She struggled in her heart, begging for mercy, and tried her best to break free from the black-robed man's restraints. However, how could Xingya, with only a second-rank strength, possibly achieve that? All she could do was watch the black-robed man draw the sword from his waist. Watch as the blood-stained blade gradually enlarged in her vision. Sob, sob, Mom, save me. However, Just as Xingya was about to faint from extreme fear and suffocation, a familiar and crisp, adorable voice suddenly rang out in her ear. "Hey, isn't it a bit too much to not even spare the children?" This voice. Zaire. Is she all right? At the moment they heard the voice, not only did Xingya freeze. Even the divine punishment sect executor who had planned to chop off Xingya's head was stunned in place. It was only moments later that he turned his head in utter disbelief to look beside him. At this moment, a little girl with delicate pink hair, dressed in a beautiful princess dress, had already appeared beside him without anyone knowing when she had arrived. How could the black-robed man not recognize this little girl? She was the Marquis family's daughter, and one of the targets they were assigned to eliminate this time. While he was preparing to deal with Xingya, his 3 companions should have been watching that girl, right? Why? Not only is she still alive, but she also appeared so mysteriously beside him. For a moment, the black-robed man's heart was shivering, and his slightly red eyes were suddenly filled with fear. How can you be, weren't you, huh? The next moment, the black-robed man's words came to an abrupt halt. Because during his questioning, his eyes couldn't help but notice the scene behind the pink-haired girl, where his companions had just been. However, at this moment, these previously lively companions were now, for some unknown reason, lying on the ground in a strange posture, their bodies convulsing, foaming at the mouth and unconscious. What is going on? Although he was baffled, the black-robed man's gaze toward the pink-haired girl became incredibly sharp. After all, his intuition told him that the collapse of his companions was definitely related to this seemingly harmless little girl in front of him. Was it protective magic, or some sort of potion? With this thought, the black-robed man released Xingya, stood up, raised his sword, and directly aimed it at the pink-haired girl, demanding harshly, "What did you do to them? How have they all passed out?" However, faced with the black-robed man's questioning, the pink-haired girl just smiled faintly and tilted her head, appearing rather eerie. Clearly, she had no intention of answering the black-robed man's question. Seeing this, a chilling, murderous intent suddenly erupted in the black-robed man's eyes. Without hesitation, he swung his sword at the girl's neck. However, just as the blade was about to touch the girl's neck, the pink-haired girl slowly raised her hand. What is she doing? At this moment, under the black-robed man's incredulous gaze, the pink-haired girl effortlessly pinched the blade between her index finger and thumb. The delicate fingers that should have been weak now suddenly burst with an unexpected strength. The terrifying and unbelievable force held his sharp blade like a vice, making it impossible for the blade to move even an inch further. Even when he mobilized all his energy and tried desperately to break free, it was still in vain. How is this possible, you? A cold sweat dripped down the black-robed man's forehead. A fear of the unknown continued to spread in his heart like a virus. And at this moment, the pink-haired girl's faint words slowly entered the black-robed man's ears. "Don't you want to know why your companions passed out? Let me tell you now, but brace yourself a bit, okay, Tilda?" What? The girl's words sent shivers down his spine, but before he could grasp the chilliness behind them, the pink-haired girl vanished from his sight. Then, egg-shattered Tilda. An unprecedented, intense pain erupted from below his waist. It bombarded his brain like a thunderstorm, causing unbearable agony that made the man in black's face twist and contort, becoming more and more comical. Under the stimulation of this extreme pain, the man in black's consciousness finally plunged into endless darkness. His eyes rolled back, and he fell to the ground, unconscious. His body convulsed instinctively, just like his companions. It was apparent that all these divine punishment sect members had received a warm and friendly consolation, from the pink-haired girl in their most vulnerable area. After the man in black had completely collapsed, the pink-haired girl standing behind him slowly retracted her foot and disdainfully looked at the four black-robed men lying motionless on the ground. On the other side, Xingye, who was continuously coughing, finally managed to crawl up from the ground after the man in black's suppression was gone. She weakly knelt on the grass and gaped at the divine punishment sect members who had lost their fighting power. Just a moment ago, that terrifying man had held a knife to her throat. But now, he was lying on the ground in such a pathetic state. Am I dreaming? A sense of unreality surfaced in Xingye's heart. To make sure she wasn't dreaming, the young girl decisively pinched her tender thigh with her thumb and index finger. In an instant, intense pain made her face twitch slightly. However, the pain also confirmed that she wasn't dreaming. She had survived, she wasn't dead. For a moment, the strong joy of surviving the ordeal uncontrollably surged through Xingye's mind, making her incredibly excited and even moved to tears. At the same time, she looked at the expressionless pink-haired girl with shock and admiration. Upon seeing the pink-haired girl effortlessly defeat the divine punishment sect experts with a single kick, Xingye's contempt for her slave status had completely vanished, replaced by unparalleled gratitude and admiration. Even the pink-haired girl's image in her mind had become more imposing. As for why a girl seemingly of the same age could so easily defeat several powerful members of the divine punishment sect, Xingye no longer had the energy to think about it. In the next moment, with excitement in her eyes, Xingye quickly got up from the ground. And with great enthusiasm, she pounced on the pink-haired girl. And in the slightly bewildered gaze of the pink-haired girl, she directly hugged the girl's arm. Zaire, you're amazing. To think you could defeat those men in black, how did you? Huh. However, before she could finish speaking, the pink-haired girl, Yumo, helplessly stretched out her index finger to press against the little girl's mouth. Please be quiet. If you're too loud, you'll attract others. Oh, I understand. Upon hearing Yumo's words, Xingye obediently nodded her head repeatedly and hugged Yumo's arm tighter, looking back with a hint of unease. After a brief moment, Xingye slowly spoke up. Zaire, can I call you sister? Huh? What kind of strange title was this? Hearing this, Yumo's brows furrowed slightly. Well. However, upon seeing Xingye's pleading eyes and recalling how the girl had dragged her around earlier, Yumo reluctantly nodded. Fine, whatever you want. Really, that's great, sister. Seeing Yumo agree to her request, Xingye was overjoyed. So, sister, what should we do now? Looking at the girl, whose attitude had changed so drastically from before, Yumo felt a bit complicated in her heart, sighing in a troubled manner. You should get some sleep first. I'll handle the rest. Sleep. Xingye revealed a puzzled expression. But in the next moment, before she could figure out what was going on, a blood-red butterfly gently floated into Xingye's line of sight. Tiny golden particles fell from the butterfly's wings. As the golden particles drifted down, an irresistible wave of drowsiness suddenly washed over Xingye. Sister, what's happening to me? The intense drowsiness quickly overwhelmed Xingye's willpower. The young girl closed her eyes and helplessly fell asleep. As for the sleeping child, Yumo gently supported her. A series of shadow energies rippled from Yumo's fingertips. Under the embrace of a crimson glow, Xingye's body slowly floated in midair. Following that, Yumo waved her hand, sending Xingye back to the so-called secret base and setting up a protective barrier around it. Get some rest first, Yumo softly whispered to her. At the same time, she couldn't help but smile wryly at herself. It was strange that she felt almost nothing when those guards and knights were killed, but she couldn't bear to see these people lay their hands on a child. Sigh. However, the Divine Punishment sect, it was about time to deal with that group of people who were constantly fighting amongst themselves. Although ending the infighting and uniting the continent's forces against the abyssal demons were the protagonist group's trial missions, it shouldn't be a big problem if she meddled a little right. Hundreds of blood-red butterflies appeared out of nowhere, fluttering around Miss Yumo. Her gaze shifted to the fallen members of the Divine Punishment sect. People on the continent knew that the Divine Punishment sect had some connections with the abyssal demons, and they could temporarily gain the power of abyssal demons through the use of drugs. In that case, accidentally losing control and becoming fully demonized seemed quite normal, right? Tilda. Thinking about this, Yumo revealed a slightly creepy smile. Her deep blue eyes narrowed slightly, and a hint of crimson light gradually emerged around her, slowly drifting toward the unconscious black-robed men. First of all, let's take care of those guys who were after the child. As Yumo's inner command was issued, the black-robed men on the ground started convulsing in an instant. Under the influence of the shadow power, their bodies began to undergo strange transformations, and eerie growls filled with bloodlust slowly emanated from their mouths, like famished beasts. Ha, what's wrong? That's it, that's all you got. Amidst the wild laughter, Romany brandished his twin blades mercilessly. With the sudden eruption of a chilling white light, Aurora's attack was instantly dispelled by Romany's two swords. In return, Romany's counterattacking blade broke through Aurora's protective aura and slashed directly across her chest. In an instant, blood splattered everywhere. The thick scent of blood filled the air. The intense pain caused Aurora's brows to furrow, but with her powerful willpower, she endured the pain and continued to swing her sword at Romany with all her might. However, faced with Aurora's renewed attack, the cruel smile on Romany's face grew even more intense and sinister. Ha, not bad, my lady, but it's a pity, Tilda. Mockingly, Romany suddenly dodged Aurora's slash with a highly twisted posture, then swiftly spun around and kicked her in the abdomen. At the same time, the violent aura gathered on his twin blades. A white beam of energy was unleashed. It struck Aurora's chest directly. Boom! Accompanied by an earth-shattering explosion, the chilling white flames engulfed Aurora. After nearly burning away her protective aura, the raging fire began to scorch her body. The unbearable pain of being burned continuously stimulated Aurora's brain, and the lady of the manor ultimately couldn't bear the agony, letting out a wail. Upon hearing Aurora's mournful cry, Romany became even more excited. The misery of others was Romany's pleasure. Watching Aurora being scorched by the flames, Romany's eyes were filled with a pathological ecstasy. Good, you truly are a family. All of your screams are so melodious. However, moments later, with the convergence of purple aura and the eruption of purple lightning, the chilling flames enveloping Aurora were shattered by the powerful force of the lightning. At that moment, Aurora escaped the torment of the sea of fire. But the extensive burns on her body and the massive consumption of aura eventually took their toll on Aurora, leaving her unable to support her flying body and suddenly falling from the sky. At this moment, Romany naturally wouldn't miss this opportunity. He directly swung his twin blades, transforming into a white meteor, suddenly charging towards Aurora with the force of a thunderbolt. The horrifying killing intent, centered on the white meteor, spread wildly in all directions, sending chills down the spines of those who sensed its presence. My lady, upon seeing Aurora falling, and watching the Divine Punishment sect member rapidly approaching behind her, The members of the Blizzard Knights leaped into action without hesitation, charging towards Romany. "Stay away from my lady, you pervert." Unleashing all their aura, the knights resolutely launched their attack on Romany. However, these knights, one of the 6th rank and 2 of the 5th rank, ultimately stood no chance against Romany, who was of the 7th rank and higher. Seeing the determined eyes of the knights, Romany's mouth curled into a sinister smile. "You overestimate yourselves. Since you want to die, I'll do you a favor, Tilda." White aura gathered on his twin blades. Wielding his twin blades, Romany resembled the Grim Reaper, harvesting souls, and violently collided with the 3 knights. In the blink of an eye, the knights' swords and their sturdy armor disintegrated into countless metal fragments. At the same time, their bodies were disintegrating as well. In an instant, under the horrified gazes of the other knights and guards, accompanied by chilling screams, the 3 knights who had clashed head-on with Romany to save Aurora were reduced to pieces of flesh raining from the sky. Blood rained down from the heavens, turning the ground as if it were draped in a layer of crimson. Aurora, who had barely managed to stand up, was also dyed red by the blood rain. Looking at the severed limbs and arms falling from the sky, Aurora's violet eyes were filled with sadness. Carl Bajero, Norway. Muttering the names of the 3 knights in her heart, Aurora clenched her sword's hilt unwillingly. At the same time, she couldn't help but glance around at the battlefield, which resembled hell itself. Everyone. At this moment, after several minutes of fierce fighting, the nearly 100 knights and the Count's guards had killed many of the Divine Punishment sect members, but they had paid a heavy price as well. Those who survived were less than 1/5, with guts and blood scattered everywhere. Screams of pain and wailing filled the air. Seeing a madman from the Divine Punishment sect about to rip out the heart of a young knight, Aurora gritted her teeth and swung her sword. Terrifying sword energy whistled through the air, directly sending the black-robed figure flying. "My lady." Seeing that he had been saved, the young knight hurriedly climbed up from the ground, looking at Aurora with immense gratitude. "Thank you, my lady, for—" However, before the knight could finish expressing his gratitude, under Aurora's horrified gaze, a figure enveloped in white aura suddenly descended from the sky. Boom! A watermelon crushed. The young knight, who had just escaped death, had his head nonchalantly crushed by Romany's foot, with brain matter and blood splattering on the ground. "Do you still have the mood to protect others? My lady, you truly are kind, Tilda." Kicking away the young knight's corpse, Romany, holding twin blades, slowly walked towards Aurora. You bastard." Witnessing the knights she had personally nurtured falling one by one at the hands of the Divine Punishment sect members, and seeing the culprit responsible for the deaths of her son, daughter, and many companions before her, Aurora's anger had reached an unprecedented level. With the strong desire to kill in her heart, Aurora forcibly endured the intense pain in her body, using her sword to prop herself up and stand. "You, all of you, why are you targeting our family so much?" At this moment, Aurora couldn't help but ask the biggest doubt in her heart. "Isn't the purpose of your existence to fight against the Asumos Church?" "Oh, it seems, my lady, you have a bit of a misunderstanding about us, Tilda. We don't exist solely to fight against the Asumos Church. According to our doctrine, any existence that opposes the Demon Lord is our enemy. Whether it's those charlatans of the Asumos Church or families like yours that guard the frontier, Tilda." Saying that, Romany revealed a playful smile. Upon noticing the smile, Aurora couldn't help but narrow her eyes. "Your tone seems somewhat disdainful of the doctrine." "Ah, well, the doctrine, the Demon Lord and all that, I'm not really interested. I don't have any faith in those matters at all," Romany admitted without hesitation. Then why did you join the divine punishment? I didn't join the divine punishment sect for any faith. I'm just following my own desires. After all, once I join the divine punishment, there are plenty of opportunities to kill. Not only do I comfortably enjoy the process of slaughtering enemies, but I also have the protection of an organization. Why not? You're a real sicko. Oh ho ho, thank you for the compliment, Tilda. Romany grinned sinisterly. But my lady, you don't need to worry. I'm a good person, Tilda. I'll make sure your whole family is reunited in the next world, Tilda. Saying that, the ominous white light once again enveloped his twin blades, and the horrifying aura inside Romany erupted once more. The terrifying shockwave swept across everything around it, causing Aurora's body to tremble uncontrollably. However, at this moment, upon hearing Romany mention family, Aurora's heart clenched, her sword hilt tightly. The thunderous aura within her, which was nearly depleted, miraculously burst forth at this moment, shielding her body. I won't let you hurt Zaire. With the conviction of protecting her family, a strong desire to fight emerged in Aurora's eyes. However, hearing her words, Romany sneered and burst into laughter. His hideous face was filled with a mocking expression. Ha ha ha, Zaire. My lady, haven't I told you? That girl isn't the so-called Zaire at all, but merely an impostor. Nonsense. No, 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 I'm not talking nonsense. Romany playfully shook his index finger. Because the real Zaire was killed by my own hands a long time ago. What did you just say? Hearing Romney's words, Aurora froze in place for a moment, her violet eyes filled with disbelief. However, the Marchioness quickly shook her head in denial, refusing to accept Romney's words. No, it's impossible. Zaire has already come back. The guardian beast has acknowledged her too. You must be spouting nonsense. An enraged Aurora swung her sword. A powerful sword aura, filled with the force of lightning, erupted and headed straight for Romney. However, facing this sword aura, which was powerful enough to split a 6th-tier abyssal demon in half, Romney merely displayed an indifferent expression, and with a casual swing of his blade, shattered Aurora's sword aura. Heh, I'm telling the truth, my lady. Romney's smile grew even more cruel. And then, as if recalling some amusing memory, Romney even revealed an expression of enjoyment. I remember it clearly. When your granddaughter was first brought to me by Benjamin, she had a smile full of happiness. But when she saw us behind Benjamin and noticed our blood-stained blades, her sudden change of expression was simply delightful. Tilda, don't you think so, Benjamin? With that, Romney sought affirmation from Benjamin, who was not far away and protected by members of the Divine Punishment sect. In response to Romney's words, Benjamin sneered and nodded his head, looking at Aurora with a mocking gaze. Ha ha ha, yes. That foolish girl even asked me for help back then. Ha ha ha, how stupid. It was you all along. Hearing Benjamin's words, Aurora clenched her fists tightly. On the other side, Romney nodded his head in agreement, looking extremely pleased. Yes, yes, that girl really was stupid. After I cut off her limbs, gouged out her eyes, and even disemboweled her, she still cried and begged me to spare her. She kept calling for her mother even though I had already told her that I killed her mother. What a fool. As he recalled the wonderful moments of that time, Romney's smile became even more wild and filled with a sick madness. The sound of his laughter continuously assaulted Aurora's heart. Even Benjamin felt a shiver run down his spine. Then, as if thinking of something, Romney clapped his hands excitedly. Oh, right, that girl may have been foolish, but she had a great voice. I still remember her screams clearly, Tilda. Because of that, I didn't leave her body to rot in the wild after I cut off her head. Instead, I fed her to my pet dog, Tilda. The tender flesh made my dog so happy, Tilda. As he spoke, Romney lowered his head, stuck out his tongue, and licked his dry lips in a savoring manner. He locked his gaze onto Aurora's face. "However, I have to blame you a bit. You raised your granddaughter too tender and delicate. After eating her, my pet dog has become so picky, Tilda. It won't eat anything but tender young children now, Tilda." Romney's tone was filled with reproach. Upon hearing these words, Aurora fell into silence. Was what he said true? Aurora couldn't help but ponder the whole issue in her heart. Was her granddaughter really killed in such a helpless and tragic manner as he described? And if Zaire was truly dead, then who was the person that had come back? Was it some monster that had taken on Zaire's appearance? After an intense inner struggle, Aurora eventually shook her head furiously, trying to cast out the chaotic thoughts in her mind. No, he is trying to deceive me. He must be trying to deceive me. He wants to shake my resolve. Whether it was because she was unwilling to accept the truth, or because she trusted the judgment of the guardian beast, Aurora refused to believe Romney's words. However, she knew very well that if she didn't deal with Romney here, the things that Madman just said would definitely happen to Zaire. She couldn't let those things happen. I must protect that child. Aurora reaffirmed her conviction. With the support of this conviction, the battered and blood-stained woman slowly rose from the ground, her violet eyes fixed on Romney. "I won't believe your words." As she spoke, surrounded by the purple lightning, Aurora raised her sword once more, pointing the tip directly at Romney's forehead. "Hefty." Seeing this, Romney sneered disdainfully. "I kindly told you the truth, but you don't believe it. Fine. And now you're pointing your sword at me. Do you think you can kill me? Do you still have the power to do that?" As Romney's words spread, the people around him couldn't help but chuckle. After all, at this point, Aurora was completely suppressed by Romney and was even severely injured. The knights and the guards of the Count's house had all fallen to the ground, unable to get up. How could this woman defeat their archbishop now? Amidst eerie laughter, the members of the Divine Punishment sect gradually surrounded Aurora. Romney slowly raised his twin blades, his eyes turning cold. "Since you're courting death, I'll grant your wish. I'm such a nice person. Since you love that fake granddaughter so much, I'll send her to join you later, Tilda, ha ha ha." Upon hearing this, Aurora's eyes suddenly turned sharp. "Don't you dare touch my granddaughter, you beast." Along with Aurora's roar, wielding her long sword, the fearless Marchioness suddenly charged toward Romney. The little remaining lightning-attributed aura within her started to gather in her chest. It was clear that after realizing she couldn't possibly defeat the people of the Divine Punishment sect, Aurora chose to use self-destruction to perish together with these beasts. However, some powerful enemies cannot be defeated by faith alone. Facing the desperate Aurora, sensing the power gathering in her chest, the mocking expression on Romney's face only grew thicker. "You want to self-destruct? You're underestimating me. How could I let you succeed?" In the past, many people he had killed had wanted to use self-destruction to perish together with him. He was all too familiar with Aurora's expression right now. So, amidst the ridicule of the crowd, the blade in Romney's hand was wrapped in white light, transforming into an energy spear. Then, with a wave of his hand, Romney sent the spear forward like a beast breaking free of its shackles, assaulting the enemy. Aurora, almost completely exhausted, naturally couldn't withstand such a powerful strike. Pooh! Accompanied by the explosion of white aura and the splattering of blood. Aurora's chest was pierced by the spear, and her body flew backward. She was pinned to a distant, large tree. "Ha ha ha, how pathetic, my lady." Seeing this, Romney's arrogant laughter echoed throughout the Count's estate. Afterward, blade in hand, Romney slowly walked towards Aurora, planning to cruelly kill the white-haired woman before him with the same method he used to slaughter Aurora's son, daughter, and granddaughter. A family, after all, should be complete. Tilda. With this thought, Romney slowly pulled out the slender, sharp knife from behind him. However, just as Romney strode forward with sharpened blade, the Archbishop of the Divine Punishment sect suddenly stopped in his tracks, his eyes widening in disbelief as he looked ahead. Huh? Not just Romney, but the other members of the Divine Punishment sect and Benjamin also showed the same astonished expressions. At this moment, a pink-haired little girl who was all too familiar to everyone somehow appeared out of nowhere like a ghost in front of them. She was facing away from them and slowly crouching in front of Aurora. At the same time, 6 or 7 eerie, blood-colored butterflies quietly fluttered around the girl. Is it her, the little girl impersonating the Marchioness' daughter? How did she appear here? This question instantly surfaced in Romney's mind. And, along with this question, an indescribable sense of fear surged in Romney's heart. The surrounding air seemed to become even colder and heavier with the girl's appearance, who, having been pierced through the abdomen by a single strike, Aurora had undoubtedly entered a critically injured state. The incessant loss of blood from her abdomen and the nearly depleted fighting spirit within her body caused the Marchioness to become extremely weak, and her consciousness began to blur. Her vision also grew murky. But even so, upon seeing the all-too-familiar pink silhouette before her, Aurora couldn't help but reveal a worried expression and instinctively raised her right hand, trying to grasp the longsword beside her once more. Zaire, hurry, run. Gasping for breath, and in a state of severe injury with unclear consciousness, Aurora still instinctively wanted to protect her granddaughter. And after hearing these words, the pink-haired girl in front of her slowly crouched down. Looking at the incredibly weak Marchioness who wholeheartedly wanted to protect her, Yumo's heart couldn't help but feel extremely complicated, her deep blue eyes filled with conflicting emotions. Sigh. I'm not even your granddaughter. Why are you still so desperate to protect me? As a 7th-stage human, it wouldn't be difficult for you to retreat. And, however, sure, it's hard for you to believe his words, right? After all, no one would want to accept the fact that their granddaughter died so tragically. Yumo sighed helplessly in her heart. She initially had no feelings for the Marquis family or for Xiumu and Aurora. Their lives or deaths had no impact on Yumo, as countless humans had died in front of her over the past 500 years. Yumo's friendliness towards the Marquis family was mainly based on the premise that they were Yuen's relatives. However, after spending days together, the love and care Xiumu and Aurora showed her, as well as their self-sacrifice in protecting her, made Yumo feel a bit warmth in her heart. Rest well for now and leave the rest to me, Grandma, Yumo said softly. At the same time, 2 blood butterflies slowly fluttered in front of Aurora. As the golden powder fell, Aurora, who was already in a semi-conscious state, could no longer resist the drowsiness and eventually closed her eyes, falling into a deep sleep. After temporarily settling Aurora, Yumo slowly stood up and turned to look behind her, a faint chill shimmering in her deep blue eyes. This time, I'll just play the role of the granddaughter, as a way of repaying them. However, you guys are really rude. As Yumo turned around, dozens of black-robed Divine Punishment sect members suddenly swung their weapons and charged at Yumo from all directions. The fierce killing intent instantly spread out like a sword, covering the sky as it stabbed towards Miss Yumo. On the other side, upon seeing Yumo's appearance, Romney felt a chilling fear in his heart. This pink-haired girl he had observed for quite some time with Benjamin's assistance before. At that time, She seemed to be an ordinary, weak, noble girl without any real strength. She was as insignificant as an ant, someone who could be easily crushed. However, at this moment, when he saw the girl again, although she didn't emit any terrifying aura, she inexplicably gave him a tremendous pressure. This feeling was even stronger than when he first met the leader of the sect. The blood-colored butterflies around the girl made him feel even more uneasy, sending chills down his spine. Who is this girl? Keeping a cautious eye on the girl's figure, Romney simultaneously gave orders to the surrounding Divine Punishment sect members with his peripheral vision. It was apparent that, faced with such a strange existence, Romney wanted his subordinates to test her first. And, under the Archbishop's guidance, the group of believers once again erupted with terrifying killing intent and frenzied aura. Without hesitation, they charged towards the pink-haired girl, brandishing their weapons. There was no doubt that if she were an ordinary child, she would have met a tragic end, being reduced to a pile of broken flesh upon encountering such an attack. However, Romney was surprised to find that, after turning around, the pink-haired girl didn't show any fear or astonishment. She didn't even react to the people's attack, just standing there motionless. What's going on with this girl? Romney couldn't help but ask himself. And the next moment, something unbelievable suddenly happened before his eyes. Under Romney's astonished gaze, the dozens of Divine Punishment sect members who were launching their attack suddenly froze in place. The thick killing intent and powerful energy fluctuations around them instantly dissipated. Accompanied by the dropping of their weapons, these believers inexplicably fell to the ground, directly passing out. What the hell is going on? Is this some kind of joke? You guys, what are you doing? Get up. Romney couldn't help but roar in anger. However, the believers remained motionless. At this moment, Romney's brow furrowed, and his peripheral vision suddenly caught a blood-red existence above him. Although that existence, like the little girl not far away, had no strong aura fluctuations, it instinctively gave Romney a strong sense of crisis. Guided by his many years of battle instincts, Romney abruptly leaped back, forcibly increasing the distance between himself and the blood-colored butterfly. A butterfly. After widening the distance, Romney finally saw the true appearance of that existence. It was a butterfly with eerie blood-red patterns, identical to the ones fluttering around the pink-haired girl earlier. Moreover, there were also these butterflies around the church believers. Is it because of these things? At this moment, Romney seemed to have realized the real reason for his subordinates' unconsciousness. Subsequently, he couldn't help but clench the blade in his hand, staring fixedly at the pink-haired girl in the distance. He initially thought she was just a weak imposter, but now it seemed this girl was a dangerous existence. Who are you? While secretly accumulating his aura, Romney questioned her. Upon hearing this, the pink-haired girl slowly revealed a sweet smile. Me, I guess I'm a child of this family, at least, for now. A child, heh? Romney couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Zaire was killed by me personally, and her body was fed to the dogs. Who are you pretending to be? Where I came from, that's not important. What's important is you. Saying that, the pink-haired girl slowly raised her hand. You won't live much longer. The moment he heard these words, a bone-chilling coldness pierced Romney's body like a sharp sword. It caused him to shudder uncontrollably. Even his soul trembled under the chill. A cold sweat trickled down his forehead. At the same time, Romney noticed the dozens of blood-colored butterflies slowly surrounding him from behind. Obviously, this imposter wanted to kill him. Don't underestimate me. Romney couldn't help but emit a fierce light in his eyes. His inner rage and cruelty gradually overcame the slowly growing fear. In the next instant, Romney, who had been gathering his strength, made a decisive move. He stopped talking to the girl and unleashed all his aura. Turning into a white meteor, he charged towards the pink-haired girl with an awe-inspiring momentum that could break through thousands of soldiers. Death Slash. Without hesitation, Romney used his strongest attack technique. Endless white aura instantly gathered on the curved blade in his hand. As the power converged, the blade was suddenly enveloped in terrifying energy, transforming it into a 3-meter-long white energy giant blade. The temperature of the ground soared. Even the space showed signs of gradual distortion. Seeing his ultimate move executed smoothly, Romney couldn't help but reveal an excited smile. Back when he was only at the early stage of the 7th rank, he had decapitated a high-ranked 7th-tier expert with this move. And now, he had reached the high stage of the 7th rank. Such an attack could probably severely injure even an early-stage 8th-rank existence. What's more important is, Romney was surprised to find, he had dodged all the blood butterflies and rushed in front of the pink-haired girl, and this girl still had no reaction, no attempt to dodge at the last moment, no intention to make a defensive move. She just stood there, stunned, as if she hadn't even caught his movement. Haha, is that all? Romney couldn't help but laugh wildly in his heart. It seemed he had overestimated his opponent. It looked like the girl in front of him had only raised a few rather bizarre pets. Her own strength was still severely lacking. What was I being so cautious for just now? Thinking of his timid behavior earlier, Romney couldn't help but reveal a self-deprecating smile. However, very soon, his smile was replaced by a cruel expression. To make me feel so embarrassed. Haha, I'll feed your corpse to the dogs later. Laughing wildly, Romney swung the energy blade in his hand, aiming for the pink-haired girl's neck. However, Romney's face changed abruptly, and his brown pupils suddenly shrank. Because he was shocked to find he couldn't cut through her skins. The blade was stuck on the girl's neck, amidst the roaring of the earth and the wailing of the sky. Under the watchful eyes of the remaining Divine Punishment sect members, Romney clenched the hilt of his blade with both hands, unleashing his strongest technique, a single slash that tore through the air, aimed at the neck of the pink-haired girl. Facing this ferocious attack, the girl didn't even have time to react. She's dead for sure. This thought was all that remained in everyone's minds. As Romney's subordinates, most of these Divine Punishment sect members were ruthless criminals like him, eagerly anticipating the bloody scene of the young girl's body being severed. Everyone's eyes were glued to Romney's blade, their focus unwavering. However, the scene they had all been eagerly awaiting didn't unfold. To everyone's astonishment and confusion, Romney's blade struck the girl, slightly sinking into her neck, only to mysteriously halt in place. Archbishop, Your Excellency. Why did he suddenly stop? Countless similar questions surfaced in everyone's minds. The most astonished of all was undoubtedly Romney himself because, at this moment, he knew full well that he had used all his strength in this strike. He had no intention of stopping whatsoever. In fact, his blade, his strongest technique, had become stuck in the girl's neck after striking her. It could not advance even a hair's breadth further. It was as if he had struck not a delicate neck, but an impenetrable iron wall. What on earth is going on? Romney couldn't help but roar inwardly, his heart's fleeting joy instantly dissipating. At this moment, the pink-haired girl tilted her head in disappointment. You, aren't you going to try harder? You. Damn it. Upon hearing the girl's mocking words, Romney gritted his teeth in fury. his muscles tensing and his body flooded with white fighting energy. At this moment, Romney put forth all his strength once again. Unfortunately, the blade still couldn't harm the pink-haired girl, and due to reaching its limit, the energy blade disintegrated in an instant. And crumbling along with it was Romney's confidence. Demon! As he locked eyes with the girl's suddenly appearing crimson pupils, an enormous demon-like darkness seemed to loom behind her, gripping the tiny Romney tightly in its hand. In an instant, an unprecedented sense of terror surged through Romney's mind. Under the puzzled gazes of the onlookers, the Archbishop of the Divine Punishment sect began to tremble violently, cold sweat streaming down his forehead. Driven by his survival instinct, Romney quickly withdrew his blade and rapidly retreated to increase the distance between him and the pink-haired girl. "You, what are you?" "Me, I'm the heiress of the Marquis family, Tilda." "Nonsense, that person is already dead. You can't possibly be the Marquis's daughter. No, you can't even be human. What kind of monster are you?" Upon hearing these words, the pink-haired girl seemed to tilt her head in displeasure. "Calling me a monster is quite rude, huh? But you're not wrong. I'm indeed not a human, Tilda." Saying this, the pink-haired girl confirmed that the unconscious Aurora was behind her and raised an eyebrow. "Only now that I think about it, this form isn't very convenient for moving around." "This form, what do you mean?" Romney couldn't help but ask. However, the pink-haired girl didn't seem to have any intention of answering him. She simply raised her hand and snapped her fingers. In an instant, under the astonished gazes of Romney and the remaining Divine Punishment sect members, a surge of bizarre crimson energy suddenly flowed out of the girl's body. In an instant, it enveloped her, along with dozens of blood butterflies. What on earth is happening? Everyone anxiously gripped their weapons, keeping a close eye on the light's movements. The next moment, when the crimson light dissipated, the pink-haired girl was gone, replaced by a stunning black-haired young woman. With phoenix-like eyebrows and bright eyes, she was seductive and enchanting. Her flawless, snow-white skin and a touch of red on her lips made her look like a lonely, enchanting red plum in the snow. Her delicate cheeks and fragile face were paired with ruby-like, crystal-clear blood-red eyes, making her seem like a precious treasure created by the Creator, or a fairy walking among mortals. Her silky black hair, with blood-red tips, cascaded like a waterfall to her small, rounded buttocks. The black off-shoulder gown she wore accentuated her slender, delicate figure. Her long, well-proportioned legs were exposed, and her snow-white feet stepped on the snow without fear of the cold. The poised black-haired girl exuded a bewitching charm all the time. Even the trembling Romney, upon seeing such a beauty, couldn't help but be entranced for a moment. However, the next instant, Romney snapped back to reality, his face twisted with disbelief. How is this possible? Sensing the irresistible, invisible pressure emanating from the black-haired girl, Romney suddenly held his breath, his brown eyes shaking in madness. Who are you?" In the face of Romney's questioning, the black-haired girl slowly revealed a captivating smile. Her smile was charming, but it contained an icy coldness and murderous intent that sent chills down one's spine. "You're going to die anyway, so there's no need to know." As she spoke, the black-haired girl slowly raised her hand. Upon seeing this, Romney clenched his lips tightly. Although he was unclear about the girl's purpose and why she pretended to be the young lady of the Marquis family, there was no doubt that the murderous intent she released was genuine. She really wanted to kill him. In that case, he couldn't just sit and wait for death. "Brothers, this girl is dangerous. Attack her together." Once again, Romney gathered his pure white fighting energy on his blade and shouted loudly. His shout suddenly brought the Divine Punishment sect followers back to their senses, showing intense hostility towards the black-haired girl. In the next moment, With Romney's eruption of power, the followers who received the signal let out a howling roar, releasing their fighting energy and bravely charging towards the black-haired girl with their weapons. However, Romney, who should have leaped forward and led his subordinates towards the black-haired girl, cleverly turned around after taking a few steps forward, suddenly transforming into a white light and sprinting wildly in the opposite direction. "What are you waiting for? Run! Just run!" Romney roared inwardly. After his previous attack proved ineffective, Romney realized the terror of the black-haired girl. Although he didn't know who she was, she definitely possessed the strength of at least 8th rank. Her terrifying constitution might have even reached the peak of the 8th rank. Even their leader, the most powerful person in their sect, had never given him such a horrifying sense of horror. And the black-haired girl, just making eye contact with her made his soul tremble. That girl was definitely a monster. Run! I must run. If I didn't run, I would die. Glancing back at the group of subordinates who were going to die for him, a cruel smile gradually appeared on Romney's face. "Hey, just buy me some time." After giving a cold laugh, Romney used all his fighting energy to increase his speed. He transformed into a white bolt of lightning in an instant and charged out of the Count's estate. Seeing that the black-haired girl hadn't pursued him, Romney couldn't help but feel ecstatic. Did I escape? However, just as Romney asked himself this question, an unprecedented feeling of crisis suddenly surged in his heart. This caused the divine punishment archbishop's eyes to shrink, his heart stopping for an instant. He quickly looked back at the estate behind him. At that moment, an overwhelming, irresistible force suddenly entered Romney's perception. This shadow force, that girl, is she a demon from the abyss? Just as this conclusion was reached, a crimson light suddenly flashed from the depths of the estate behind him. And under Romney's horrified gaze, dozens of crimson energy chains suddenly assaulted him from behind. In a flash, they tightly locked onto the rapidly moving Romney, rendering him immobile. "What? No, 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 no. Help me, ye." Bound by such a terrifying force, Romney's heart was swallowed by fear, and he couldn't help but let out a hoarse cry for help, struggling frantically to break free from the chains. Unfortunately, his efforts were futile. Afterward, with Romney's scream, the chains suddenly retracted, forcibly dragging Romney back to the estate. "Nuo, F at UK, what the hell is this?" Struggling with all his might, trying to break free from the chains, Romney was horrified to find that no matter how hard he tried, the crimson energy-constructed chains remained unmovable. Powerlessly, Romney fell miserably to the ground like a dog. He was dragged back into the manor by the chains. The followers guarding the perimeter, seeing this, rushed forward in an attempt to help their archbishop. However, in the instant they charged, they were smashed into pieces by the swinging chains. With resistance and support from his followers proving futile, Romney had no choice but to be dragged back, screaming in misery. "Why are you running?" Watching Romney being dragged back like a dead dog, the black-haired girl tilted her head and said with a playful smile. Her voice was as crisp and pleasant as a gentle stream. But upon reaching Romney's ears, it turned into the whisper of the Grim Reaper, causing his body to tremble and his fear to escalate. He could only twist his head shakily, looking back at the beautiful and dangerous black-haired girl. At this moment, his followers who had charged in his place were all lying in pools of blood. And yet the black-haired girl at the center of the slaughter remained immaculate, still so flawless, chilling to the core. As their eyes met, Romney couldn't help but swallow several times. Blood butterfly, an unimaginable physical constitution, and the just unleashed power of shadow. Although it was hard to believe, Romney had a rough guess about the identity of the girl before him. Is she the new Demon King? Blood Butterfly. Upon realizing this, a mixture of fear and amazement flooded Romany's heart, as a humanoid Demon King existence was unheard of. What's more, this Demon King was actually mingling within the Marquis family like she was playing house, even going so far as to protect them. Hadn't they made a mistake? Damn it! If only I had realized her identity sooner, how could I have dared to attack her? Romany couldn't help but roar inwardly. However, feeling the cold, bone-chilling killing intent in the girl's crimson eyes, Romany had no time to dwell on these issues. Great Blood Butterfly, I am a faithful follower of the Demon Lord. It was not intentional when I attacked you just now. Please have mercy, spare me. In the face of death's threat, Romany had already cast aside the so-called dignity of his saint-stage power, continually moving towards the black-haired girl's feet on the ground, as if trying to gain her forgiveness by kissing her feet. I have been working tirelessly for the Divine Punishment Sect for your great cause for decades. I have killed hundreds of those foolish enough to oppose the abyssal demons, those stupid pigs who tried to resist the Demon Lord. We have been diligently working all these years to weaken the strength of the various empires. Even if there are no merits, there is hard work. Please, consider all this. Spare me. I really didn't mean to attack you just now. Although he was not a true believer in the strictest sense, Romany, in order to save his life at this moment, pretended to be incredibly devout. Please don't kill me. However, what Romany didn't know was, his words had the opposite effect. The black-haired girl's crimson eyes narrowed slightly, the killing intent in her eyes growing thicker, and the temperature of the surrounding air continued to drop. Spare you? Haha, funny, when you killed Zaire before, did you consider sparing her? Zaire. Blood Butterfly, that situation, it's not the same. I did that for the Demon Lord. For the Demon Lord. Ridiculous, that was to satisfy your own desire for slaughter, right? Moreover, what I hate the most are those who harm children. As she spoke, the black-haired girl slowly raised her hand. A surge of intense, shadow power gradually emanated from her palm. Blood Butterfly. At this moment, Romany was horrified to find that his body was being slowly lifted by the crimson chains, directly dragging him into midair. A feeling of unease flooded Romany's heart. Frightened, the Archbishop's face twisted in fear. No, Blood Butterfly, don't kill me. I can be your servant, do anything for you. Please don't kill me. Blood Butterfly, I don't really like that name. The black-haired girl frowned, a hint of displeasure in her tone. But don't worry, I won't kill you. Killing someone like you would dirty my hands. You won't kill me. Hearing this, Romany's face instantly lit up with joy, and an intense feeling of gratitude surged in his heart after his narrow escape from death. Thank you, my lord. Thank you, my lord. From now on, I will go through fire and water for you without hesitation. In the face of Romany's series of insincere words of gratitude, the black-haired girl merely gave an indifferent smile. The next moment, just when Romany thought he had cheated death, under his unprepared gaze, the crimson energy chains floating around him suddenly rushed towards him. Before Romany could react, dozens of sharp blades emerged from the tips of the chains, immediately piercing through Romany's limbs and dozens of major meridians used for circulating fighting energy. The unbearable pain instantly assaulted every nerve in Romany's body, constantly attacking his brain. As the chains were withdrawn, Romany was transformed into a bloody figure, falling miserably from midair and landing on the ground mixed with blood and mud. The sudden turn of events. The joy that had just emerged in Romany's heart was suddenly wiped away, replaced by horror. After a bout of wailing, Romany shakily raised his head, looking at the playful black-haired girl in front of him. Why didn't you say you wouldn't kill me? I didn't kill, I just crippled your cultivation, Tilda. The crimson eyes of the black-haired girl were full of mockery. As for whether you can survive or not, that depends on how strong the bond is between you and your subordinates, doesn't it? Bond. Tilda. With no intention of explaining, the black-haired girl slowly raised her hand and snapped her fingers. The crimson shadow power gradually spread around. In the next moment, under Romany's horrified gaze, the dozens of black-robed people who should have been dead next to the black-haired girl slowly stood up. However, the aura surrounding these black-robed figures was no longer just pure fighting energy, but also mixed with the eerie shadow power. Their faces became even more twisted, their bodies gradually swelling, and they even grew sharp fangs and claws. Upon witnessing this scene, Romany gasped in shock. Abyssal transformation. Nope, Tilda, just a partial abyssal transformation. They still have a bit of brain left. Of course, their inner desire for slaughter is very strong, Tilda. The black-haired girl said with a smile. If your bond with them is deep enough, they won't hurt, but if it's not, Tilda. Before her words fell, these dozens of hideous monsters suddenly lunged towards Romany under his desperate gaze. With Romany's heart-wrenching screams, blood and entrails splattered everywhere. An archbishop of the divine punishment sect met his end, devoured by his own subordinates. Tilda. In the face of such a gruesome scene, the black-haired girl, our Miss Yumo, couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Well, what kind of bond can there be between someone who would betray his teammates and his subordinates? With that said, Yumo turned her head to tend to Aurora. But at this moment, Romany's weak wails before his last breath made Yumo stop in her tracks. No, it wasn't me. We were just following the orders of the Child of Demon Lord. The Child of Demon Lord told us to do it. Hearing this, Miss Yumo, who was halfway to Aurora, stopped in her tracks and slightly furrowed her brows. Demon Lord's child, next. The eastern part of the Great Winter Forest. Jace, didn't we get there yet? We're close, just over the hill ahead. Walking through a small ditch, the former adventurer named Jace spoke excitedly. Hearing this, the seventh brave of the Asumo's church, Cabin couldn't help but reveal a thrilled expression. Finally, they were almost there. As long as he could bring the exact location of the demon temple back to the Asumo's church, he would gain immense merit. Without a doubt, he would become the new apostle of heaven. This era belonged to him. Cabin's story was about to begin. Imagining his bright future, Cabin's mouth couldn't help but slowly curve into a smile. He was extremely satisfied with his decision to venture into the Great Winter Forest. It was absolutely the best decision of his life. For a moment, an unparalleled excitement surged into Cabin's heart. Quick, hurry up. He couldn't wait to experience the feeling of achieving fame and success. However, despite his excitement, there was still a hint of annoyance deep within Cabin's heart. Then, the red-haired man slowly turned his head to look at the woman behind him, dressed in the church's uniform and with short orange hair. Arella, didn't you say you wouldn't come? Why did you still follow us here? Cabin's words were filled with disdain, as well as a strong sense of smugness. Didn't you say we wouldn't be able to find it? Didn't you say Jace was a liar? But look now, aren't we almost there? In response to Cabin's words, the orange-haired woman named Arella narrowed her eyes slightly, still full of disdain. We haven't arrived yet, what's the hurry? Let's see how long you can keep up that stubbornness. Cabin sneered coldly. He couldn't wait to arrive at the demon temple and see the change on Arella's expression, to see what kind of expression the third brave, who usually looked down on him, would reveal after seeing the demon temple. On the other side, Arella remained indifferent in the face of Cabin's smugness. She didn't respond to his provocation, but instead focused on observing the surrounding environment. Likewise, she was also on guard against the appearance of the abyssal demons. At first, when Cabin mentioned that he knew the news about the demon temple, Arella indeed didn't pay any attention, as such fake news was endless. Even after seeing the so-called demon temple fragment, Arella remained skeptical, since Jace, the adventurer, had many holes in his story. In Arella's view, the other party was just a liar. Moreover, even if there were such intelligence, it should have been reported to the Archbishop or the Pope immediately and waited for the decision of the Church's upper echelons, instead of taking action on their own for merit. Arella didn't initially plan to enter the Great Winter Forest, but reported the intelligence to the Archbishop. However, before waiting for the Archbishop's reply, Arella was surprised to find Cabin had already taken matters into his own hands, bringing his team and Jace into the Great Winter Forest. Although there were some minor conflicts between her and Cabin, Arella, being the third apostle of Earth, still valued her companions very much. Naturally, she couldn't just watch her companions foolishly march to their deaths. So Arella, armed with a rare spatial teleportation scroll, hurriedly entered the Great Winter Forest. Using the locator tool between the braves, she traced Cabin's movements, trying to bring the adventurous brave back to the City of Wind. However, after tracking them down, Arella was astonished to find the so-called secret passage that Cabin and Jace had taken was indeed just as they had described it earlier, a special path free of magical beasts and abyssal demons. After secretly following them for several hours based on the residual aura, Arella hadn't encountered a single abyssal demon. She couldn't even sense any residual demonic presence. Perhaps is that adventurer telling the truth? After such a thought surfaced in her heart, Arella decided to join Cabin and the others after catching up with them. She was also curious about whether they could really reach the demon temple. If they were to encounter a large number of abyssal demons later, escaping shouldn't be a problem with the spatial teleportation array given to her by the Archbishop. And so Arella joined the team. There really no abyssal demons. Looking around at the eerily quiet forest, Arella felt increasingly complicated inside. Although she still harbored doubts, now she might have to believe that Cabin had truly found a reliable adventurer with genuine information. If that were the case, what about the path ahead? Would crossing this hill lead them into that special barrier? And then, would they see the demon temple? Thinking of this, Arella couldn't help but feel a bit nervous, and she gripped the slender sword at her waist. After all, who knew whether they would encounter any other abyssal demons after entering the barrier, as Jace had said. And so, in this way, filled with a mixture of apprehension, excitement, and doubt, Arella and the others crossed the final small hill together. As if expected, they seemed to step into a special barrier. Everything around them suddenly twisted, and their vision in front of them underwent earth-shattering changes. The dense forest of giant trees that had been ahead of them vanished abruptly. In its place was an open expanse of land, an open land surrounded by forests. However, after crossing this piece of land, the excitement on everyone's faces instantly disappeared. The reason was simple. They did not see the demon temple. What? Where's the demon temple? Walking at the forefront, Cabin suddenly looked around frantically, disappointment rapidly showing on his face. After disappointment came a surge of anger that filled his eyes. Of course, apart from anger, there was also embarrassment. After all, he had just boasted to Arella. You lied to me." With the eruption of his red holy energy, Cabin suddenly turned around, grabbed Jace by the neck, and sternly questioned him. Where's the demon temple? Didn't you say it was right here? Why is there nothing here? However, after entering the barrier, Jace seemed to have lost his soul, standing there dumbfounded. No matter how much Cabin slapped him, there was no sign of a response, and the light had already left his eyes. What the hell is this? Cabin struggled to accept the situation, tightly gripping Jace's neck. At that moment, a shield-bearing brother walked up to Cabin, speaking in an astonished and perplexed tone. "Captain, look over there." "Huh, what now?" Hearing this, Cabin followed his teammate's direction, looking towards the lakeside in the distance. The next moment, like the other members of the Asumo's church, Cabin froze in place when he saw what was by the lakeside. His brown eyes were filled with disbelief. Why is there a cottage here? Looking at the countryside house-like cottage, Cabin couldn't help but doubt his own eyes, rubbing them repeatedly. Why is there a cottage? Could that be the demon temple? No, that's not very likely. Arella, who was also feeling puzzled, couldn't help but shake her head in denial. How about we go and take a look? Under normal circumstances, facing such a bizarre and unthinkable situation, recording the coordinates and retreating would be Arella's usual style. However, for some reason, when she saw that cottage, Arella's gaze was fixed on it, as if there were voices coming from inside, constantly calling her to investigate. And when Arella made this suggestion, the other members of the Asumo's church had no objections. Cabin, already feeling frustrated, was even more eager in the face of the strange allure of the cottage, rushing forward. Since we're already here, let's see what this place really is. Meanwhile, atop a distant giant tree, a beautiful blue-haired girl was quietly sipping her cold drink and silently watching the members of Asumo's church approach the cottage. Good luck to you, all. Tilda being on high alert. The Asumo's church people finally arrived at the front door of the cottage after a struggle of conflicting emotions. Under the watchful eyes of the anxious team members, Cabin slowly opened the door, even politely calling out as a symbolic gesture. "Excuse me, is anyone here?" Of course, there would be no answer to Cabin's greeting. The cottage remained silent as if a pin could be heard dropping. Not only was it silent inside the house, but even the surrounding forest was eerily quiet, making everyone's hair stand on end. The strange feeling gave rise to a sense of unease and the desire to retreat. However, it seemed as if there was a mysterious power within the cottage, constantly luring them deeper inside. Someone is living here. Are you kidding me? This is the winter forest. Looking at the neatly arranged furniture and the carefully placed decorations inside, Cabin couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. This simple and cozy cottage, filled with the atmosphere of everyday life, almost subverted the worldview of the members of the Asumo's church. How could there be humans living in the winter forest, which was home to many terrifying abyssal demons? It was simply unbelievable. How did these people get to the winter forest? How did they avoid the abyssal demon attacks? And now, where is the owner of this house? For a moment, countless questions flooded everyone's minds. While observing the furniture inside the house, Arella slowly made her way into the living room, feeling incredibly puzzled as she stroked the fur on the sofa. Then, a trace of astonishment appeared on her lovely face. Is this the hide of a snow lion king? The snow lion king was an extremely powerful magical beast. As Arella touched the fur, she seemed to feel the residual powerful magical power within. If her judgment was correct, the owner of the cottage must be very strong. However, there was actually no need to judge. How could anyone who could build a house in a terrifying place like the winter forest be weak? They just didn't know who was living here. Besides, would breaking into this person's residence without permission provoke their displeasure? Thinking of this, Arella became increasingly uneasy. There, there. The exploration continued, as did Arella's thoughts. However, suddenly, a warrior's roar pulled Arella back to reality. "Hero, come and look at this." The words were filled with urgency, causing Arella to frown slightly. Then, the young girl slowly followed behind Cabin and the others, entering the basement. Guided by another member of the Asumos church, they arrived at an ice spring in the basement. Upon looking at the tranquil ice spring, Arella's eyes suddenly narrowed, and a strong sense of fear emerged in her pupils. At this moment, she understood why the warrior's words were filled with such anxiety earlier. Now, in Arella and the others' line of sight, at the bottom of the ice spring filled with cold air, there was a huge crimson crystal that resembled a butterfly cocoon, and inside the crystal was a delicate little girl with her eyes tightly closed. As they saw the girl's face clearly, not only Arella, but everyone present showed astonished expressions. Why does she look so similar to the girl beside Lady Menxi? This was everyone's first doubt. However, they didn't pay much attention to this issue right now. Compared to another serious matter, the similarity in appearance wasn't such a big deal. What made everyone feel uneasy and frightened was the dense energy of the shadow power that enveloped the girl. That terrifying energy of shadow was stronger than any abyssal demon they had encountered before. Much stronger. It could be said that it was not on the same level at all. If their judgment was correct, this black shadow power might have reached the level of a demon king. And if they sensed it carefully, they would also find the pink-haired girl wrapped in the crystal did not have even the slightest hint of human aura. What was there instead was a nauseatingly thick abyssal demon aura. In other words, is this a demon king-level abyssal demon? Arella gasped and slowly whispered her conclusion. Upon hearing this, the previously doubtful followers of the Asumos church instantly showed frightened and uneasy expressions, involuntarily stepping back from the ice spring. A demon king level, is it really that kind of monster? It should be. Arella nervously nodded. She should still be in a sleeping state, otherwise she would have attacked us already. Besides, she is in human form. Staring at the girl inside the crystal, Arella's entire body trembled, and her mind was filled with countless doubts. The mysterious cottage in the forest. The demon king-level existence within the cottage, a human-shaped demon king. Did this human who had accepted the power of the demon temple, or was she forced? Moreover, why did this girl look so much like Xiaomo? Wait a minute. This girl also had a slave mark on her foot just like Xiaomo. Could this girl be the real Marquis daughter? But if that were the case, who was the person accompanying Miss Menxi now? In an instant, Arella's face turned serious. At the same time, a priestess slowly approached Arella, her petite body already trembling. After all, they were now in the same room with that terrifying monster from the legends. Who knew if that horrifying demon king existence would suddenly wake up? So the blonde priestess asked nervously, "Arella, what should we do now?" "What should we do?" Muttering under her breath, Arella's expression became increasingly grave. At this point, ever since they had ventured a certain distance into the eastern part of the winter forest, their communication magic stones had been blocked by some special energy field and could not be used. In Arella's view, unable to establish contact with the Asumos church or other heavenly apostles, it was best for them to retreat as soon as possible. Although she didn't know why she had unwittingly entered the area. But now, there was no time to care about that. Be careful, let's retreat first. While the demon king level existence hasn't awakened yet, let's quickly leave this place. Yes. The priestess nodded in agreement. At this moment, The people of the Asumos church were indeed surprised by the appearance of this demon king human, but they did not let their guard down because of her human appearance. After all, no matter how gentle a creature may be, it would become incredibly violent and brutal once transformed into an abyssal demon. The seemingly harmless little girl in front of them was probably no different. They must not let their guard down because of her appearance. Let's hurry and go. Upon receiving Aurella's instructions to retreat, everyone hastily prepared to leave the basement, as no one wanted to share a room with that terrifying ticking time bomb. However, as they were leaving, Aurella's brow suddenly furrowed. She couldn't help but look at the red-haired man who was staring blankly at the ice spring behind her and whispered, "Cabin, what are you doing standing there? Hurry up and leave." "Leave?" Unexpectedly, upon hearing Aurella's words, Cabin sneered disdainfully. "This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Why should we leave?" "Cabin, what do you mean?" He, a demon king abyssal demon, lying here so defenselessly, and you want to just run away. Aurella, you're too timid. His body's crimson fighting energy began to surge slowly, and Cabin's aura suddenly rose at this moment. It was indeed disappointing not to find the demon temple. But if I could kill a demon king-level existence, maybe I will also obtain endless honor and wealth. How could I let such an opportunity slip by? Though the demon king was strong, but this abyssal demon king was clearly in a weakened state and completely defenseless. If I used my strongest attack, I will surely kill her. Success is for those with courage. Cabin, don't do anything stupid. Realizing what Cabin intended to do, Aurella hurriedly rushed forward to try to stop him. However, it was already too late. Cabin had already drawn the battle axe from behind his back. The violent flame-attributed holy law energy suddenly erupted with a bang. Raging axe split the sky. And in the next moment, under the horrified gaze of everyone, Cabin leaped into the air and launched a fierce attack on the crystal at the bottom of the ice spring. Why? Why are you treating me like this? I am the daughter of the Marquis family. If you mess with me, my grandfather won't let you off. Do you still think you are the Marquis' family daughter? You are nothing but a slave now, a lowly slave. As the words fell, the merciless man branded the pink-haired girl's ankle with a scorching hot iron, leaving a mark symbolizing slavery. The girl's screams echoed throughout the old house. The intense pain caused the girl to pass out. "Benjamin, brother, please save me." "Tisk, save you. Keep dreaming. Just accept your fate as a sacrifice for the divine punishment sect, just like your foolish sister, ha ha ha." "Sister, you kidnapped my sister Zaire." Not only Zaire, but also your foolish parents. But don't worry, the bishop is very kind. He will soon send you to reunite with your parents and sister. Ha 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 ha. "No, don't. Please give me something to eat, I'm starving. I'm about to pass out." "Food, dream on. If you don't want to get beaten again, get lost." "Please, I really can't go on." Is that so? You do look a bit attractive. How about this, serve me obediently for one night and I'll give you food, all right." Save me." "I can save you, but whether you can survive or not depends on yourself. The process will be extremely painful, making you wish you were dead. And even if you survive, you'll have to pay a painful price. Are you willing?" As long as I can live, I am willing." "Well, if you're willing, then fine." As the black-haired girl's drop of blood fell, the pink-haired girl lying on the ground dying from illness fell into a deep slumber. "My dear sister, you don't have to be afraid anymore. From now on, no one can hurt you." No one." "That's right, Tilda. But I'm so weak, how could?" No, my dear sister, you must realize that you have been reborn. Those who once tried to harm you are nothing but ants to you now. You can kill them at any time." Kill. Yes, they are nothing but enemies. You don't need to feel burdened. And not only enemies, anyone who makes you unhappy, anyone who dares to harm you, you can kill them. Moreover, I'm sure you, who have been betrayed, bullied, and almost killed, know very well that most humans are nothing but lowly, despicable, cunning, and unworthy creatures that don't deserve to exist in this world. Now you are Mommy's child, and you must help Mommy and get rid of the filth in this world, especially those creatures that use holy energy or divine power. Holy energy, divine power. Yes, that's the filthiest, most nauseating aura. Once you encounter those auras, you'll understand. Then, what should I do when I encounter them? Of course, you should eliminate them. Eliminate those pests. That's your most important mission after being reborn. There. In her slumber, a pair of slender, warm hands gently caressed the girl's cheeks. A crisp, gentle voice, filled with a strong allure, echoed continuously in the girl's mind. At this moment, in the basement of a small wooden house in the eastern part of the great winter forest, Arella wanted to stop her companion's suicidal actions. Unfortunately, it was too late. Under the uneasy gazes of the people of the Asumos church, Cabin leaped up and unhesitatingly used his strongest skill, wild axe splitting the sky. The furious fire element, holy energy, burst out from Cabin's body non-stop, and it continuously attached itself to the giant axe. In an instant, the battle axe was engulfed in raging flames. Terrifying heat spread out from Cabin at the center, sweeping across the entire basement. The horrifying aura erupted, directly blasting the members of the Asumos church, except for Arella, against the nearby wall. The aftermath of the energy caused cracks to appear on the wall. The entire wooden house began to collapse. When the battle axe with a horrifyingly high temperature hit the icy spring, a vast amount of mist instantly spread out. The ice-cold spring was suddenly turned into steam under Cabin's attack. Yet the power contained in the axe didn't decrease at all. Aurelia died. With Cabin's slightly mad roar, the huge axe slammed into the crimson crystal. Accompanied by a crisp crack sound, cracks rapidly spread across the crystal. Almost there. Almost there. As long as I kill this demon king-level existence, I'll be successful and famous. No one will ever look down on me again. Cabin's inner self roared madly. As the crystal continued to shatter, and as the axe in his hand got closer and closer to the pink-haired girl's neck, Cabin's smile became more and more insane. Unparalleled excitement had already filled his heart. He even started to imagine the scene of the girl's head being chopped off. It's over. With an excited shout, the crystal completely shattered. Cabin's battle axe suddenly slashed toward the girl's delicate neck. However, at the very moment of imminent success, Cabin suddenly held his breath. His pupils shrank abruptly as if he had been struck by lightning. His body started to tremble uncontrollably. Because at this moment, Cabin was horrified to find. At the moment the crystal shattered, the pink-haired girl who had been asleep all this time had somehow already opened her eyes. Those heterochromatic eyes, filled with an eerie and icy aura, stared intently at him with a strange gaze. The deep blue eye was filled with coldness, while the blood-red eye carried intense madness, making Cabin shiver in fear. She woke up. How come it happened so suddenly? Cabin was horrified. But soon, the seventh hero's gaze hardened once again. He was now in a dilemma. The only thing he could do was to continue the attack. Wild axe splitting the sky was his long-accumulated strongest attack. This demon king-level creature didn't seem to have strong defenses. Moreover, she had just woken up and didn't have the shadow's power around her. If he kept attacking, he might still be able to kill her. Be brave, Cabin. Hallelujah. Suppressing the unease in his heart, Cabin suddenly let out a heart-wrenching roar. However, in the next moment, under Cabin's astonished gaze, the girl whose head was about to be chopped off showed no signs of fear, even revealing a mesmerizing, eerie smile. Pest Tilda, with the girl's lips slightly parted and her chilling words entering his ears. Cabin's battle axe suddenly chopped off the girl's head. It was very easy and effortless. Just like that. He. Just like that. In an instant, ecstasy flooded Cabin's brain, causing the seventh hero and apostle of Earth to burst into maniacal laughter. Even Arella and the others, who had been holding their breaths, showed expressions of disbelief. Ha 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 ha, I did it, I killed a demon king, ha 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 ha, I knew I could do it. From now on, no one will dare to look down on me again, ha ha ha, I will become the fourth heaven apostle. Huh. However, before he could laugh for long, Cabin's expression suddenly changed, looking terrified at the girl's head, which had somehow floated into midair. There was no blood at the wound on the girl's neck. Instead, there was an eerie black energy, which was still connected to the girl's body, Tilda. It's time to eliminate the pests, Tilda. Staring at Cabin's horrified brown eyes, the girl eerily narrowed her own eyes. No, this is impossible. How are you not dead? Cabin roared in frustration. But before he could figure out the situation, in the next moment, a vast amount of pure black shadow's power suddenly burst out from the girl's body. Boom! With an earth-shattering explosion, the black energy erupted from the ground. In the blink of an eye, it transformed into a black beam shooting straight into the sky. The small wooden house above was instantly reduced to ashes. Elsewhere, watching the black beam erupt in the distance and feeling the terrifying shadow's power sweeping across the land. Sitting atop a giant tree, Shoyu, who had been silently watching, smiled satisfactorily. He, as expected, in order to awaken my sister, Tilda, a little stimulation is needed, Tilda. Using this disgusting holy energy was indeed a good choice, Tilda. Similarly, under the rampage of the eerie black light filled with ghostly wailing, apart from the two seventh-rank Earth apostles, the others from the Asumo's church didn't even have the chance to resist before they were swallowed and dismembered by the sudden outbreak of the black light. As for the two, although they managed to survive, they too were severely injured. At this moment, Cabin, relying on his excellent reaction ability, dodged the first annihilation beam released by Uwinner. However, due to the close distance, Cabin's left arm was inevitably hit by the black light, turning it into a cloud of blood mist. The blood stained his armor. The loss of his arm made him see the reality more clearly and deepened his regret. Damn it, if I'd known, I wouldn't have attacked her. Moreover, why didn't she die even after her head had been cut? Dodging the rampaging black light and rushing to the surface, Cabin pressed hard on the large wound on his left shoulder, looking fearfully and puzzledly at the place where the wooden house had been. At this moment, under the watchful eyes of the two anxious apostle, the raging black light gradually stabilized and turned into a bizarre black liquid. Surrounded by this black liquid, the terrifying humanoid figure slowly emerged from the ground. Under the sunlight, the pink-haired girl's figure appeared clearly in front of the two heroes once again. Her petite and exquisite figure, her pink and white shoulder-length hair casually draped over her shoulders, had a few pure black highlights on top of the predominantly pink hair. Her slanted bangs just brushed past her eyelids, curved willow eyebrows, beautiful red and blue gemstone eyes, long eyelashes trembling slightly, fair and flawless skin exuding a faint blush, and thin lips delicate as rose petals. Although dressed in tattered slave clothing, it couldn't conceal the girl's cuteness. However, along with her cuteness, there was also an eerie beauty and chilling aura. More importantly, the head that Cabin had just severed was now reattached to the girl's delicate body, with no trace of injury. As her aura gradually stabilized, a terrifyingly sinister smile slowly appeared on the girl's face. In her beautiful eyes, a strong murderous intent and bloodlust emerged. Her mismatched red and blue eyes immediately locked onto Cabin and Arella. The surrounding black liquid also twisted and writhed at this moment, as if it possessed life. In an instant, as the Demon King being's gaze locked onto him, Cabin's legs began to tremble. Undoubtedly, all of his teammates had perished in the explosion of the shadow power just now. He himself had also lost an arm as a result. However, Cabin had no desire for revenge in his heart at this moment. All he felt was intense fear and the urge to flee. After all, when his ultimate move failed to kill his opponent, Cabin lost all his will to fight. While intensely staring at the pink-haired girl, Cabin secretly gathered his energy, attempting to activate the rare high-grade teleportation scroll at his waist to instantly return to the Asumo's church headquarters. However, after constantly stimulating the teleportation scroll, Cabin was horrified to discover the scroll showed no reaction at all. What is going on? Why can't it be used? What the fu at dollar at? Cabin couldn't help but roar in his mind. Did the scroll got damaged? Or could it be that it's unusable within this barrier? If it's unusable within the barrier, then he should hurry and get out. In an instant, Cabin already had thoughts of abandoning Arella and fleeing alone. However, just as this idea emerged, Arella's anxious cry entered Cabin's ears. "Be careful." Huh. At this moment, every cell in Cabin's body sounded a hysterical alarm. In the next moment, under Cabin's horrified gaze, the black liquid around Yuaner suddenly erupted. It violently reshaped and condensed into thousands of bizarre long whips with sharp barbs. Strictly speaking, it could be called tentacles. Thousands of black tentacles, filled with an overwhelming killing aura, roared like a terrifying beast unleashed, charging toward the two apostles. The horrifying pressure shook the earth and sky. The nearby forest seemed to emit a piercing screech. Facing such an all-encompassing attack, after realizing that they couldn't avoid the incoming assault, Cabin had no choice but to grit his teeth, mobilize the holy power throughout his body, and brandish the battle axe in his hand, slashing at the countless bizarre tentacles. At the same time, Arella did the same. After drawing the thin sword at her waist, she launched a storm-like attack on the tentacle swarm under the protection of the white light. Boom! Accompanied by wave after wave of terrifying power bursts, under the deep red glow and pure white light, countless tentacles were severed by the two. However, the situation was still extremely unfavorable for the two heroes. Compared to the endless, abyss-like black shadow power, Cabin and Arella's combined holy power was insignificant. Like two isolated islands amidst the black abyss, they could be swallowed by the dark tidal wave at any moment. Moreover, under Cabin's nearly desperate gaze, the severed tentacles were instantly regenerated under the protection of the black light. What? No, how could they keep fighting? Flame Blast. Violently swinging his battle axe, a giant tiger constructed of flaming fighting spirit and raging flames charged at the tentacles in front of them. In an instant, a massive fireball erupted. After releasing this long-range attack, Cabin didn't hesitate to turn around and run towards the direction outside the barrier. Escape was his only thought at this moment. However, just as he turned around, Cabin's eyes suddenly narrowed. An indescribable fear instantly gripped Cabin, as if a demonic claw from the abyss had grabbed him, dragging him deeper into the endless darkness. At this moment, Cabin's brown eyes reflected the pink-haired girl, who had mysteriously appeared behind him like a ghost. "Where are you trying to go, Mr. Tilda?" Hearing the girl's creepy voice, filled with bloodlust and madness, and gazing into her eerie, mismatched eyes, Cabin suddenly held his breath. Get away from me, ah. Under the influence of extreme fear, Cabin let out a heart-wrenching scream and swung his giant battle axe at the girl. Facing the all-out attack from the seventh apostle of Earth, Yuener just gave a faint smile. The surrounding tentacles instantly turned into sharp blades capable of cutting iron. Pooh! Blood splattered everywhere as, under Cabin's desperate and unwilling gaze, his battle axe was suddenly shattered, and countless sharp blades ruthlessly pierced his body. Unparalleled pain attacked Cabin's brain. Desperate, the seventh apostle shakily raised his right hand, attempting to beg for mercy from the demonic girl in front of him. No, please. However, Cabin's plea seemed to excite Yuener even more, her mismatched eyes filled with delight and madness. In the next instant, the blades piercing Cabin's body suddenly went berserk. Cabin's plea was cut short as countless black spikes burst from within his body. In a flash, the seventh apostle was turned into a porcupine. His eyeballs were impaled by the spikes that burst from within, and his heart and brain were no exception. He was deader than dead. Meanwhile, taking advantage of Yuener's focus on Cabin, the third hero, Arella, transformed into a beam of white light, breaking through the encirclement of tentacles and quickly closing in on Yuener. Starfall strike. While the demonic girl hadn't yet reacted, Arella directly stabbed her thin sword towards Yuener's heart. A sword enveloped in dense, sacred light energy struck through Yuener's chest with unstoppable force. However, Arella didn't show the slightest hint of joy on her face. The reason was simple: she didn't feel any sense of impact. But the girl was right in front of her. Arella was utterly confused. Unfortunately, the third apostle of Earth had no more chances to ponder the issue. In the next instant, under Arella's horrified gaze, Yuener's head spun around 180 degrees, suddenly looking at Arella, who was behind her. This caused Arella to tremble uncontrollably, and even her soul let out a wail at this moment. Yuener's mouth cracked open. Boom! Accompanied by the flickering of dark light and the twisting and cracking of space, a terrifying black annihilating beam suddenly burst from Yuener's mouth. The beam rapidly grew larger in Arella's desperate eyes. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and like the video and comment down if anything wrong in the story, and if have any suggestion to a new novel or want next part of any series, comment down. Our target is to get 1K subscriber. There will be SUPRISC for all of you. Stay tuned.